but I couldn't tell if it was just like, all right, do I just think he's like all fucked up, or like, is everyone else seeing this too? And then I did realize shortly after looking at the internet that everyone else was also seeing it.
Well, what's weird is that, like, I feel like we and plenty of other people have kind of been saying that about Biden for a while now. Like, anyone paying attention to like the last, I don't know, at least 3-4 months of public appearances, like videos, and not even just like right-wing edits or whatever, but like any appearances, would see him in the way that he's speaking and be like, I don't think that everything's okay in the house of Biden. Like, something's amiss.
Yeah, his wife's being rude to him at home.
No, but it's like one of those moments where you're watching it. I mean, it makes sense where you're sort of like, well, I'm sure they'll find a way to spin this since they do everything else. And yet there was basically like nothing.
Well, as the night dragged on, I realized like because obviously, yeah, I agreed the same thing. I was like, I wonder, I basically just immediately started thinking like how they're going to play this off. And then it got to the point, and there wasn't a certain thing that did it. I think it might've been, he was trying to like finish a point, and then the moderator was like, you're out of time. And he sort of just like, I think he ended his sentence with an and then just stopped speaking and kind of froze up.
Yeah.
I think at that point I was like, you can't spin this. Like, this is a fucking disaster. And I got to be honest, I was thrilled because I don't like Joe Biden. And I like to see somebody who I think is a bad person have a bad night. But at the same time, I did also like, I was wondering, like, if I was in the shoes of one of his advisors, like, how would I try to spin this? And my initial thought was, don't you feel bad for this old man?
Yeah. No, and I think that what's funny is that I was watching it and I did a lot of my, and I want to talk about Trump too, but a lot of my like immediate feelings were, this is really uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
Because you were like watching, like, to me at least, like I, you know, maybe we can kind of like wildly and inappropriately speculate about his health issues.
It's not inappropriate. We do that all the time with people on here.
Yeah.
With like mental issues, physical issues, sexual issues. I would say 40% of our show is that.
Okay, that's true. That's fair enough. But like, it felt like someone who, what I was watching was like perhaps had a lot of, I can't remember what they're called, but like mini strokes, like a series of really mini strokes. And so it was like you could see him like in his head have the ideas and the thoughts, but he couldn't connect those thoughts to his like body being able to speak them out into the audience or to the moderators and the cameras. And so it was like kind of weirdly heartbreaking to watch, where you're just like watching this. And I don't have any feelings about Joe Biden. Fuck Joe Biden. Fuck the Biden family. I've got I fucking hate these people. But it was like watching this like husk of a like politician, old man, like staring at Father Time, like trying to put these things together and failing like totally miserably live television.
Do you remember a while ago? I don't know what it was, but there was like something, I think it was like on Twitter or Instagram or something, where someone's like, oh, like Peepaw ordered, 40 burgers for his birthday and nobody showed up. And it's like an old man with some burgers. It felt like that kind of thing. We're like, oh, it's like, listen, you're at an old folks home, and okay, maybe everyone in there is an Adolf Hitler type because it's like 1990 in Germany. But you're like, you're a pathetic, sad old man. Like, you shouldn't be on stage in front of everybody humiliating yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough to watch. And
it
engenders not a political sympathy, but a very human sympathy where I'm like, don't make people watch this man do these things. And I think one of the things that made it so painful to actually watch, because it really was tough to even just look at him at times. And at one point, I took a picture of Walker, one of my friends I was watching with, and he was just like, his head was in his hands because he couldn't look at Biden because it was like, this is uncomfortable.
It was a fucking car crash. It was watching a car crash.
But it's
like,
he's just sitting there with his slack jaw.
That's how like time comes for all of us too.
Yeah, well, it won't come for me because of some packs I made. Sure. But he's just sitting there or standing there slack jawed. And I remember there was a rumor that they wanted them to sit down for the debate.
Yeah.
Trump mentioned, I think, even at the rally we were at. And I was like, dude, he should be lying down and like have an IV in him and like his family like patting his forehead with a sponge.
For Trump, I gotta say, I mean, I don't think that he was like that great either.
No.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like he had one line that was great, but it wasn't like a Trump line. There was something where he's like, I can't remember the context, but he's like, we knocked on wood wherever we may have had wood. Which is a great
he looked
line.
around for wood, and he knows you can't knock on something that's not wood when you say that. He also said something about I think the economy was rocking, which I appreciated.
Yeah, that was kind of a racism, but like he wasn't. There's a thing in sports, where people say that you kind of like there's the phenomenon of the trap game, where you have an opponent that you don't respect. And so you end up playing down to them. And so you don't bring your A game and then you end up like getting your ass beat or whatever. I don't think that happened. But I do think that Trump was like pretty incoherent as well. Like he kept kind of trailing off too. And not just in his normal Trump ways, but kind of like veering into like other things and not totally finishing sentences and not making a lot of sense. And so what the like end product was completely surreal because it was like these two old men saying like just shouting incoherent things at each other. And then you had those moderators just sitting and pretending like this was a kind of exercise that meant something or there was substance to anything that these people were saying. Like none of it was coherent in any way possible.
I took a lot of Trump's like answering every question in a different way, let's say. As a form of, and you're supposed to do this in politics, but you should really do this. And this is a tip for all you listeners out there. If you're ever being interviewed or someone's asking you questions, only answer the questions that you want to answer.
Sure.
And so it's like whenever they'd ask him anything about whatever, he would just turn it to like the border or migrants or deportations, because I think he realizes that like that's polling like in his favor.
When he knows that people aren't going to ask any real follow-ups. Like the whole thing is such a joke, you know?
Yeah, and like Biden wasn't gonna like be able to like Biden's not nimble enough to like actually argue with him about anything.
Sure.
I think at one point he said like he sucks or something. Like Biden said something just like you're stupid or something like that. I can't or I can't, it was some like very kind of G-rated insult. And Trump said like let's not be childish, and some during some exchange he said that, and I was like I know that they'd planned that out for like when Biden sort of flutters around and sputters, because it really was like a very subdued. I mean, Trump is also just like getting older, and like he does not have like the kind of neurological decline that that Biden has, because I think Trump is on his he's on his own shit. I think he's on his own sort of spectrum there, and so I don't think we can judge that in exactly the same way. But yeah, he just kind of brought it back. It felt kind of just like a stump speech almost.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. That, it's not like Biden could come in and like kind of like come back with fighting words. And even when he kind of tried, like remember Trump brought a bow and Biden turned real nasty in that way. That's kind of like, it wasn't that kind of classic Joe Biden, like the fighter thing that his team always tries to kind of like pitch him as, but it kind of read more like old man getting really angry and a little bit like out of pocket due to his age.
I will say this, Trump should have been like, what year did your son die? Because famously, Joe Biden, even though he brings up Bo's death every fucking day, does not remember what year his son died, which I believe was 2015.